Shedeur Sanders has become the center of a tug-of-war inside Cleveland's building, a quiet conflict that grew louder after the loss to the Jets. What looks like a simple quarterback decision on the surface has evolved into something messier, with whispers of internal disagreements and fractured confidence in Kevin Stefanski's leadership. Dillon Gabriel's repeated mistakes only magnify the tension, as coaches and analysts alike struggle to justify keeping him atop the depth chart.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Deion Sanders' presence in the conversation adds another layer. There's a sense that waiting too long to act could jeopardize the relationship with a family that carries enormous weight in the football world. When a franchise lets ego interfere with evaluation, the fallout can be long-term. Choices made in moments like this shape reputations, define careers, and reveal whether leadership values results over pride. The Browns must decide whether they're protecting an outdated strategy or willing to embrace the difficult changes required to move forward. Kevin Stefanski has officially been fired by the Cleveland Browns, and it didn't happen because of a bad record, poor game management, or locker room politics alone. This time, the trigger was something far worse. He got accused of sabotaging Shedeur Sanders. Yes, that Shedeur Sanders, the rookie quarterback everyone thought would be the face of the franchise. The son of Deion, the #1 overall pick. The player fans have been begging to see on the field since week 1. Instead, week after week, Stefanski started Dillon Gabriel, a quarterback whose performance has been, frankly, brutal. Multiple interceptions, failed drives, and zero leadership spark. The offense has been stuck in neutral, while the future of the team was forced to sit on the bench and watch the disaster unfold. It's not just a football mistake. It's a credibility crisis. Fans have been losing their minds. Local media torched the decision-making. Stadiums were echoing with chants for Sanders, while Gabriel was busy racking up incompletions. And still, nothing changed. Stefanski stuck to his guy like he was seeing something no one else could see. Spoiler, he wasn't. At some point, this stopped being about loyalty to a starter and started looking personal. Stubbornness was one thing, but this started to feel calculated. Fans and analysts began calling it what it was: sabotage. And the worst part? No one in the Browns organization was saying otherwise. No explanations. No clear direction. Just silence and more losing. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders, the player with elite pedigree, a proven track record, and a work ethic praised by everyone from college coaches to NFL scouts, couldn't even get meaningful reps. The front office stayed quiet. The coaching staff kept dodging questions. And the excuses wore thin fast. It all came crashing down after that brutal 27-20 loss to the New York Jets. Gabriel had another nightmare performance. And the Browns, once again, walked off the field with no answers. That game wasn't just a loss. It was the final straw. Ownership had seen enough. Stefanski was out. And not because the team needed a fresh start, but because he risked everything just to prove a point. He buried a generational talent in Sanders while the team's season burned to the ground. What made it even worse? Reports started surfacing that the decision to bench Sanders may not have been purely football-related. Speculation exploded. Was it favoritism? Was it ego? Was Stefanski afraid to admit he was wrong about Gabriel? Internal leaks hinted at growing tension within the building. Some even said the coach refused to acknowledge Sanders' progress in practice, despite his clear readiness. The damage wasn't just on the field. It spread through the locker room. Players were reportedly frustrated. Some didn't understand why Sanders hadn't gotten a chance. Others believed the team was playing politics instead of playing to win. That kind of environment doesn't just ruin seasons, it ruins cultures. It was only a matter of time before ownership had to step in. And when they did, they sent the only message that could even begin to reset the narrative. Kevin Stefanski is no longer the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. But the damage is far from done. Because now the Browns have to deal with the fallout, not just from a coaching change, but from how this entire situation was allowed to spiral. The media has framed it as a franchise misstep. The fans are calling it betrayal. And Shedeur? He's been nothing but professional. But how long does that patience last? There's already talk that if Sanders doesn't see the field soon, a trade request could be on the table. And let's be clear, if the Browns lose him, it'll go down as one of the most embarrassing moves in franchise history. You don't spend the first overall pick on a quarterback just to ruin him before he ever plays it down. This entire ordeal exposed a massive issue inside Browns management, an inability to evaluate talent, a fear of admitting failure, and an unwillingness to develop the players who can actually change the future of the franchise. Dillon Gabriel should have been benched weeks ago. Instead, he was treated like a franchise savior, while the actual savior was ignored. The fans knew. The analysts knew. The locker room felt it. The ownership finally acted. But the question now is, what took so long? When stadiums are chanting for a quarterback who hasn't even played yet, that's not normal. That's desperation. And still, it didn't shake Stefanski's confidence in his own failed plan. At some point, it stopped being about football. It became about pride. And that pride almost cost the Browns their most important asset. There are lessons here. Hard ones. First, ego kills teams. Stefanski couldn't let go of his decision, even as the entire building crumbled around him. Second, talent evaluation under pressure reveals a lot. And what this revealed is that the Browns were making decisions based on fear and bias, not performance. And finally, development isn't optional. When you have a rookie like Shedeur Sanders, you have to give him the opportunity to grow. That's how you build a future. That's how you build a team. Right now, the Browns have a chance to correct course. A very narrow one. If they want to restore faith, they need to start Sanders immediately. No more holding him back. No more excuses. No more posturing. Get him under center and let him play. Win or lose. This season now has to be about his development. That's the only way this mess even starts to make sense. Because if they wait, if they fumble this opportunity again, then everything Stefanski was accused of, sabotage, favoritism, ego, won't just be on him. It'll be on the entire organization. And that's not a narrative the Browns want hanging over their heads for another decade. The fans deserve better. The team deserves better. And Shedeur? He's earned his shot. Every single snap that goes to anyone else now is a waste of time. The only path forward is through him. This isn't about hype. It's not about legacy. It's about making the right football decision for the first time all season. And if the Browns are smart, they'll realize that starting Shedeur Sanders isn't just a response to public pressure. It's the only choice they have left. What's your take? Was Stefanski protecting his pride or just blind to the obvious? Should Shedeur take over right now? Or has the organization already done irreversible damage? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you've ever screamed at a Browns game through clenched teeth. And don't forget to subscribe. We'll be here for every scandal, every sideline meltdown, and every time a franchise somehow makes the wrong choice when the right one is right there. All right, let's keep going, because if you think this situation was just about a bad quarterback decision, buckle up. The way this franchise handled Shedeur Sanders could go down as one of the most self-inflicted disasters in modern NFL history. Not because Sanders isn't ready, not because he's unproven, but because the Browns had the opportunity to do everything right, and they did everything wrong instead. Kevin Stefanski didn't just mishandle a young quarterback. He threw a wrench into the entire developmental arc of a potential franchise-changing player. And not in a quiet, behind-the-scenes kind of way. This happened in full view of the public. Game after game. Press conference after press conference. Fans screaming for a change. Analysts writing op-eds about the insanity of sticking with Dillon Gabriel. The proof was on the field every Sunday. And still nothing. You have to ask, how does that happen? How does a professional football organization, with all the data, scouting reports, and internal insight you could possibly have, sit on a generational quarterback talent while the team sinks under the weight of failed leadership and stubborn decision-making? There's only one answer that makes sense: ego. And ego is a poison in football. It spreads fast. It kills momentum. And worst of all, it blinds leaders to the most obvious truths. The truth here? Dillon Gabriel was never the guy. He never looked like the guy. Not in practice. Not in live games. Not even by accident. His interception rate was through the roof. His pocket awareness was basically non-existent. And the offense? Flat. Ineffective. Predictable. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders is standing on the sidelines. First overall pick. College standout. NFL bloodline. Unshaken leadership presence. And he can't get one meaningful drive? That's not strategy. That's sabotage with a side of denial. Stefanski, whether he realized it or not, backed himself into a corner. Every game he stuck with Gabriel, the pressure mounted. Every loss, every turnover, every missed opportunity to see what Shedeur could do. It all added fuel to the fire. And once the media narrative shifted from maybe Shedeur needs more time to why is this coach deliberately holding him back, there was no turning back. And once that narrative takes over, you're done. It doesn't matter if you're trying to protect the rookie. It doesn't matter if you're sticking to a flawed process. Once fans and analysts decide you're sabotaging your own player, you're toast. Stefanski had to go. Now here's the thing. Firing him might calm the outrage. It might reset the PR cycle. But it doesn't undo the damage. Because what this revealed, what this whole mess laid bare, is that the Browns as an organization have been operating from a place of fear, not vision. Fear of being wrong. Fear of benching the wrong guy. Fear of disrupting a system that was clearly broken. But what they should have feared more was losing Shedeur Sanders altogether. Let's be brutally honest here. If this team continues to handle him like a backup instead of a blueprint, he will leave. That trade request fans are whispering about, that becomes real. And when it happens, no amount of spin will save the Browns from the fallout. Because this isn't just about Shedeur. It's about every future prospect watching this team from the outside and thinking, if they did that to their number one pick, what would they do to me? That's how you lose the locker room. That's how you lose trust in the draft room. That's how you become the franchise players actively avoid. The Browns are playing with fire. And the only way to put it out is to start Sanders now. No gimmicks. No shared reps. No, he needs more time. That ship sailed the moment you fired your head coach for sabotaging his development. And yes, there's risk. Sanders might struggle. He might have a rocky start. That's part of being a rookie. But guess what? That's still better than what they've been dealing with under Gabriel. Because, at least with Shedeur, you're building towards something. Every rep he takes now is an investment in 2026, not just a desperate Band-Aid on 2025. The fan base knows this. That's why they've been chanting his name. They've watched this team fumble opportunity after opportunity for decades. And for the first time in a long time, they had something to believe in. Until Kevin Stefanski made it clear that belief didn't matter to him. So what now? Ownership made the right move by cutting the cord. But the next steps are even more important. Because how the Browns handle the Shedeur situation from here on out will define not just the rest of this season, but the next 5 years of this franchise. It starts with accountability. Someone in the front office needs to publicly admit what went wrong. Not in vague terms. Not in we're looking forward cliches. They need to say, we mishandled Shedeur. We let coaching pride get in the way. And we're fixing it starting now. Then they need to hand Shedeur the keys. Not with hesitation. Not with caveats. With confidence. Make it clear that the offense is his. Let him lead. Let him make mistakes. Let him throw. Let him fail if that's what it takes, because that's how he'll grow. You can't bubble wrap your way into greatness. You have to take risks. And the riskiest thing the Browns did all season was refuse to take one on the right player. There's also a bigger conversation to be had about culture. How did this happen in the first place? What systems allowed a coach to stonewall progress like this? What voices in the building tried to raise red flags? And were they ignored? Because unless those questions get answered, it's only a matter of time before history repeats itself. The Shedeur Sanders era must begin now. Not just to salvage this season, but to save the franchise from spiraling into another cycle of mismanagement and regret. If they do this right, the Browns can still recover. They can turn the chaos into clarity. They can build a team around a player who's ready to rise, and who, despite all this drama, has never lashed out, never caused a scene, never made it about himself. That kind of composure? That's leadership. That's what you want in a quarterback. And if the Browns don't recognize that now, someone else will. There's no longer a debate. No more maybe next week. No more hiding behind game plans. The message from the fans, the media, and anyone with two eyes is loud and clear. Start Shedeur Sanders. Now. The clock's ticking. The fan base is watching. And Shedeur? He's waiting. Ready. Focused. More patient than most rookies would ever be. But even patience runs out. Let's not kid ourselves. What's happening in Cleveland right now is bigger than a coaching change. This isn't just another disappointing season or another rookie mishandled. This is about how a franchise with every possible tool to succeed willingly walked into disaster, holding a blueprint for their future in one hand and a lighter in the other. The Browns didn't stumble into this mess. They chose it. Week after week, they ignored what fans were shouting, what analysts were screaming, and what logic practically begged them to do. Start Shedeur Sanders. And not just because he was the #1 overall pick. Not just because his last name is Sanders. But because from the moment he stepped into the facility, it was clear he was the most prepared, the most talented, and the most dynamic quarterback on the roster. Yet somehow, Kevin Stefanski clung to Dillon Gabriel like it was a hill worth dying on. And in the end, it was. That 27-20 loss to the Jets wasn't just another notch in the L column. It was a mirror held up to the face of a failing system. The kind of performance where you can't spin your way out of it. Gabriel was shaky, the offense was disjointed, and Stefanski looked like a man coaching in denial. The reaction? Immediate and vicious. Media backlash. Fan outrage. Social media threads that went miles deep. And behind the scenes? Reports of internal frustration, fractured trust, and a growing sense that Stefanski wasn't just mismanaging the roster. He was actively damaging the future of the franchise. And here's the part that should really scare Browns ownership. If Shedeur Sanders wasn't who he is, if he didn't have that poise, that legacy, that pressure-cooked calm, he'd already be gone. Let's be real. Most rookies in his position, after being benched for half the season, while a clearly inferior quarterback runs the offense into the ground, would have demanded out. Or, at the very least, made it publicly known that they were done waiting. But not Shedeur. He showed up. He stayed quiet. He kept working. And that is what makes this even worse. Because the Browns didn't just waste talent. They disrespected professionalism. They punished patience. That's why fans were so furious. They weren't just watching losses pile up. They were watching a team waste time. And in the NFL, time is everything. Every week you don't develop your rookie QB is a week you're burning money, burning momentum, and burning trust. So Stefanski's out. Fine. But now comes the real test. Does this team have the guts to admit the full extent of the failure? Because the only thing worse than screwing up the first half of the season is pretending it didn't happen. Ownership needs to do more than release a quiet statement. They need to face what this really was. A case study in how ego and fear can derail an entire franchise. Stefanski didn't just misread the situation. He dug in. He ignored the noise. He acted like the answers were going to magically appear if he just held on longer. They never did. And the only person who paid the price for that gamble, besides the fans, was Shedeur Sanders. So what now? It's simple. Start him. Give him every first-team rep. Let him command the huddle. Let him make mistakes. Let him learn in real time. Because the myth that you need to protect rookies by sitting them on the bench while the team spirals out of control, it's just that, a myth. You don't protect quarterbacks by shielding them from experience. You protect them by setting them up with the right support system and the right opportunity. And the Browns have neither. Yet. But they could if they stop lying to themselves. This is the fork in the road. Either you embrace reality and hand the reins to Shedeur now, Or you drag this mess out and hope he doesn't ask out in the offseason. And let's talk about that, because it's not an empty threat. The Browns already bet against the most valuable asset on their roster and lost. If they keep fumbling the post-Stefanski era, they won't just risk losing him. They'll make it impossible to keep him. It doesn't matter how high you drafted a player if you turn your back on him before he even takes the field. And if you think Shedeur doesn't have options, you haven't been paying attention. Teams would line up for a quarterback with his skill set, demeanor, and marketing power. You think other front offices haven't noticed what's going on in Cleveland? They're watching closely. So the Browns need to act. And not just act, they need to overcorrect. Show they're serious. Clean house if they have to. Promote whoever in the building actually believes in Sanders' potential. Give him a team built for growth, not excuses. That's what real leadership looks like. Because let's face it, no one's buying the "he wasn't ready" excuse. Not after Gabriel looked like a college walk-on. Not after practices where insiders leaked that Shedeur was consistently outperforming him in drills. Not after multiple games where the Browns failed to score in the red zone and still wouldn't switch things up. This was never about readiness. It was about pride. And pride just got your head coach fired. Now you've got a shot at redemption. A small one. But it's still there. And it starts with giving the fans and your team a reason to care again. That reason is Shedeur Sanders. And no, it's not just because of the name. Not just because of the hype. But because this franchise finally has a quarterback who can be more than a highlight reel. A quarterback who's mentally tough, mechanically polished, and emotionally mature enough to handle the pressure that Cleveland puts on its players. This is the moment you stop running from your potential. This is the moment you let him take over. And if the Browns don't do that, if they stall, hesitate, or try to spin one more week of competition or preparation, they're going to lose more than just a season. They're going to lose their future. So ask yourself, Browns Nation, are you done waiting? Should Shedeur take the field this week? No more excuses? Has the organization earned back your trust? Or are they one more misstep away from total collapse? Drop your thoughts below. Tell us how you'd rebuild from this mess. Hit that like button if you've ever screamed into a towel during a Browns game. And subscribe. We're not going anywhere. Because when it comes to drama, Cleveland always delivers. And we'll be here for every second of it.